Hello, everyone. I am Aydoğan Vatandaş, the editor-in-chief of Politurco.com. Today, I have a very remarkable guest, Dr. Ömer Atilla Ergi. Welcome to my show, sir.
Hello, Aydoğan. Thank you for the invitation. Good to be here.
Dr. Ergi, you are expert on Islamic theology. Your PhD is on Islamic theology, I know that. But you also have a background of physics. So you are interested in the most recent developments in science and physics. So what I want to talk today, what I want to talk to you about today is the extraterrestrial life. And, you know, it's a very interesting topic. Every day we hear something new about that. And UFOs, UAPs, extraterrestrials, aliens. So personally, what do you think? What do you think that this UFO phenomenon is? And do you believe that there might be some sort of non-human intelligent entities in our universe, in our world? So let's start from that point, if you like.
Okay. Well, this is the $64 million question, isn't it? That perhaps scientists at SETI would love to know the answer. As you know, there is an organization called SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and they are looking for signals and evidence of intelligent life out there. And SETI is located at Mount View, California. They have not discovered any sign of intelligent life yet. But scientists do believe that it will happen one day. They strongly believe this. When we look at the issue from an, as you mentioned, Islamic theological perspective, I can say this in a humorous way. You can bet your Newton's sweet apples that we are not alone. I'm pretty sure of that. So when we look at the Quran, we can see the signs of intelligent life out there. But the main question, the big question here is, are there intelligent organic beings like us out there? Because the Quran is very clear about the existence of beings such as angels, you know, and it says that they are created, well, in the Hadith, it's mentioned that they are created of nur. This is some type of light, perhaps photons, we don't know. And there is also the mention of jinns in the Quran, who were created, this is very interesting, from smokeless, toxic, and penetrating fire. We know that this is not normal fire we are talking about, because these definitions are coming from the Quran itself. For example, in chapter Rahman, verse 15, it says, وَخَلَقَ الْجَانَّ مِن مَّارِجٍ مِّن نَّارٍ. It means that, yes, we have created these beings, which called jinns. I think they are extraterrestrial beings, some type of extraterrestrial beings, because the definition, you know, being created out of toxic, penetrating, smokeless fire, to me, it sounds like some type of radiation, perhaps, you know, some kind of antimatter, we don't know. So from a Quranic perspective, there is life out there. You know, we have no doubt. As a believer in the Quran, we have no doubt. But in this program, I think we are going to look at some of the verses from the Quran that indicates existence of organic life as well.
Biological.
On exoplanets. Biological organ.
David Garage
Yes.
was talking about this issue. He said that U.S. government has some, biologicals
Yes.
from the
Yes.
crashed, aircrafts.
Yes. Yeah. So when we look at the Quran, Aydoğan, and we see that there is an indication of this, in the Quran anyway, and this may even support like David Grush's view, or arguments. Like, for example, if we look at chapter Ash-Shura, verse 29, it states the creation of the heavens the universe, the space, and the earth, and the living beings spread throughout, both are amongst his signs. The very interesting thing here is this. I mentioned about angels being created out of light, photons perhaps, and jinns out of some type of radiation. But here in this verse, the Quran uses the term dabba for living beings. And this refers to organic living beings. And it says spreading both on earth and in space. And it is crucial. This is crucial because in the Quran, wherever the word dabba is mentioned, it refers to either animals, humans, or other organic beings in general. So in terms of their characteristics and behaviors, these are biological beings. We can be quite sure of that because we can support this with other verses. Like, for example, in chapter Nur, verse 45, it states that God created every living organic creature from water. Some crawl on their bellies, some walk on two legs, and others on four legs. Therefore, the term dabba here, you can see, points to organic biological beings being created out of water. And science definitely supports this, confirms this. In the first verse, I mentioned the words وَمَا بَثَّ فِيهِمَا indicates duality, when it says both in space and on earth, meaning the creation of organic beings both on earth and in space, because the verse states that God created the heavens and the earth and spread throughout both of them living organic biological beings, as the term dabba denotes here. In the following verse, it is stated that God provides sustenance for every living being on earth and throughout space as well, meaning these beings, they consume food, they eat and drink. So clearly indicating to the biological beings, whether these beings are humans or human-like life forms,
Humanoid.
we are not really sure. We're not really sure. However, we do know that the creation of these biological organisms, whether they are human or non-human or human-like, is within God's infinite power. We know that God has the power to create all these beings throughout this immense universe. Even the observable universe that we see currently is about 93 billion light years thick. That's quite large in diameter. And they say that there are about 2 trillion galaxies in the universe, and in each galaxy, billions of stars and perhaps planets orbiting them. And when we look at another chapter, it's called At-Talaq, verse 12, the existence of biological organisms out there in space, it becomes more evident in this verse. Because the verse says, God is the one who created the 7 heavens and the earth. This is the interesting part. And the like of them. And similar places. Similar to earth, for example. The command descends among them so that you may know that God is capable of everything and that God encompasses everything in knowledge. Here, the term, the earth and the like of them, meaning the earth and the planets similar to the earth. So God did not only create the heavens, but also planets like earth as well. The Quran says this. And when we look at some of the exegesis of these verses, the great Quranic exegete and one of the companions of the noble prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, Ibn Abbas, interprets this verse as follows. In each of these heavens mentioned in the verse, there are earths like yours, similar to yours, like Goldilocks planets. And on them, there are beings similar to those on earth, meaning biological beings. There are atoms. He goes into more specifics. He goes, there are atoms like your atom, and there are counterparts of other creatures on Earth as well. And if anyone interested in this narration, they can look at the Tafsir of Tabari and Ibn Kathir. They will see that there. And very interestingly, he talks about some planets, some Earth-like planets, being about 500-year distance from us. And this hadith narration is also covered in Bayhaqi and Hakim al-Mustadrak, as well as Tirmidhi's Tafsir commentary, which suggests that when you travel in space, every 500-year distance, there exists worlds or planets very similar to ours. I do not know exactly what this 500-year distance refers to. It could be 500 light years. It could be 500 megaparsecs. We do not know. But we are pretty sure in this regard, there is no place, region on Earth which is 500-year distance. Even if you walk to Earth, walking pace, if you go around the equator of the Earth, 40,000 kilometers, it's going to take you maximum 2 years. There is no such a distance on Earth. So if they're saying, if Ibn Abbas, or it's a hadith related from the noble prophet, is saying 500 years, this would indicate at least to a distance of 500 light years. And the same thing repeated in these narrations as well, where Ibn Abbas says, these are Earth-like places, there are humans like us on them, and there are prophets like Noah, Abraham, and Moses. Very interesting. Meaning that whoever these beings are, they are intelligent, and therefore prophets from their own kind were also sent to them. So when we look at the authenticity of this hadith, scholars of hadith, muhaddithin, unanimously agree that its chain transmission, which is sanad, is reliable. And prominent scholars like Hakim and Zahabi have both declared the chain of transmission, which is sanad, and the text, because this is hadith criticism, matin, to be authentic, quite authentic. So to emphasize further, Ibn Abbas stated, if I were to explain this verse to you in detail, to the people around him, I fear that you might reject it and fall into disbelief. I find this quite interesting. The prophet knew more than, that was mentioned in the hadith, who these beings were, what type of beings they were. But the prophet, sort of refrained from explaining all details here, fearing that some people deny it and they may fall into disbelief. Nowadays, as I mentioned before, modern astronomy is continually searching for Earth-like planets that may be habitable or suitable for life, I should say. One example that we mentioned in some programs before, Aydoğan, is the Kepler 186 system. There are 5 planets orbiting the star there, the host star. They're already been identified by the astronomers. The 4th planet from its host star, it's called Kepler 186f, resembles our planet Earth in some ways. Kepler 186f orbits a red dwarf star in the Kepler system. The planet is slightly larger than the Earth, with a rocky surface, which is a fitting criteria of a Goldilocks planet, which is a planet in the habitable zone where conditions may allow the formation of breathable atmosphere and even water. So here's the interesting thing. How far is this planet from us? Well, this is where it gets very interesting, because when you look at the Ibn Abbas's, narration, uh, astronomy says this planet is about 500 light years away from us,
Hmm.
which makes the topic
Right.
more interesting. So this is exactly what Ibn Abbas, claimed or argued, or he said, we should say. Is it possible that he was referring to Kepler 186f? I do not know. Perhaps we may find out in the near future when we build bigger and more powerful telescopes. It's possible. But what is important here is that the Quran and the Hadith informed us about the existence of exoplanets in the universe and the existence of organic biological beings on them 14 centuries ago. So is it possible that they may already be here or visited us? I honestly don't know. But you may remember, Aidan, we did a number of programs
Right.
before, where I talked about beings like Ya'juj, Ma'juj. We explained that that these two species mentioned in the Quran, both in chapter Kaf and Anbiya, and in many ahadith as well, will one day invade the earth. And according to the Quranic and hadith narrations, we see that they will kill many people on earth,
And they
and
are
they
coming
will
from
only
the
be
sky?
defeated.
They are coming
Sorry?
from, I mean, are they coming from the sky?
Yes. Yes, because the verse in the Quran, if you look at Surah Kaf 83 onwards, it talks about the travels of the Zulkarnain. And Surah Anbiya 96, verse 96, it clearly says that they will come from above, from the sky. They will come down. They will have weapons. That's what
They
the
will have weapons.
hadith.
Right. They will
They will
come.
have weapons.
Okay. They will come from the sky, from above, and they will have weapons, and they will
Yes.
kill the majority of the people living in the earth, and they will consume our waters.
They will, well, the first thing they will be, targeting is our water. And that's very interesting too, is, when you look at the ufologists, you see that there is a sort of a bridge there, a parallel there.
Right.
Because the noble Prophet, والسلام, our Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, says, when they descend upon the earth, he says their arrival will be accompanied by a voracious consumption of the available water sources on earth. And the Prophet says, they will first, consume the entire waters of Lake Tiberias at a rapid pace. The Prophet clearly mentions this. So, yes, they will attack our waters. They will kill many people, according to this narration. And humans, in response to this big invasion, I should say, from above, they will seek protection within the shelters and mountains. That's what the Prophet says. Nice. And Ya'juj will engage in armed aggression against human populations. And interestingly, the Prophet says they will start boasting about their conquest of both the terrestrial and celestial realms, meaning that they may have invaded other planets as well. Like they are like maybe intergalactic colonizers. This is quite possible. So the Prophet says they will indiscriminately attack and deplete water supplies wherever they encounter them. Those who seek in the mountainous regions, they will pray to their Lord, imploring for deliverance from these formidable creatures. Very interestingly, one day, he says, after a while, some people, some humans will come down from the mountains to check what's happening, in the rest of the Earth's surface. And they will see the dead bodies of millions of Ya'juj, Ma'juj, these organic, extraterrestrial beings. And what will kill them, according to the noble Prophet, is a type of mini creature, which is bacteria or a virus. It will infect the napes of their necks, the Prophet says, ultimately leading to their demise. And this is a Sahih narration. It is mentioned in Muslim, Bukhari, Ibn Majah, and Tirmidhi under the category of Hadithul Fitan. Hadithul Fitan means narrations about the end of times, when the doomsday is approaching. And these are one of the signs of the doomsday. So we can see that, according to the Quran and the prophetic narration, we have no doubt that there are extraterrestrial beings.
Mm-hmm.
Have they visited us? It is a possibility, because when you look at history, and when you look at the Quranic sources, there is evidence that in the past, thousands of years ago, there was some sort of technology. Although some archaeologists may deny this, but when you look at the Quran, it's very clear. We can look at the story of Sulaiman alayhi salam, Prophet Solomon. We can look at the story of Zulkarnain. We will see there's some type of technology. We can even look at the chapter Fil that talks about some sort of flying, objects.
If you don't mind, before coming to the potential technologies that were involved in these stories, I want to ask a question, if you don't mind. So you are classifying some non-human entities, non-human intelligent beings, according to Quran. First, you mentioned the genes. In the Western literature, we know demons, but genes in Islamic theology might be demons or good ones, or Muslim genes. So they might be following, because we already know that the Lucifer, for example, according to Quran, or Satan was also a gene. So they are created from the smokeless fire, as you said. And according to Quran, there is a battle, there is a struggle between Satan and humankind. But what we understand is that there are some genes, or some demons are also followers of the Satan, according to Islamic theology. But what I want to understand here is that, what does the term gene means? What does it mean? The term. What does it mean? And second, yes.
Sorry,
you can answer. What does it mean? The term.
Okay. Look, jinn technically means the unknown, the unseen. That's
unseen.
What it means. So, unseen, unknown. Well, it's not
unidentified. In other words, unidentified. Yeah, we cannot.
That's what it is. Yeah. But from an Islamic perspective, Aydan Bey, when we say jinn, it is not really equivalent of the demon as it's understood in the Western theology.
I understand.
Because
demons are
jinn
the bad
is a
ones.
physical being.
Right. The name of the species.
And amongst them there are evil, beings as well. There are good
evil
beings
ones
as
are
well.
called
Just
demons.
as you would
evil ones.
human populations.
Right. But what I want to understand...
Yes, like humans, we have too. We have evil people and good people, don't we?
That's it. The evil genes are called demons in Western, tradition. But what I want to understand is that we generally have considered these beings, the genes and the angels,
as evil,
as metaphysical beings, or like ghosts, and some sorts of
spiritual metaphysical
that's
beings.
correct. But as far as I understand from our sources, they also can project themselves as physical bodies. So how do you explain that? Can they transform themselves from one phase to another? Do you think so?
Look, I'll answer that in two different
Right.
ways. The number one is they are not metaphysical beings,
That's correct.
from my perspective, because when the Quran talks about the spirit, the soul, the Quran says it is a commandment of your Lord. It's an emir, commandment from your Lord.
Right.
But when the Quran talks about the creation of jinns, it is actually saying that they are created from a substance, physical substance. They are not metaphysical beings. The Quran describes this substance too. That is why, in my view, this substance is some form of radiation, electromagnetic radiation. So when they take solid form, because humans can see them sometimes, it has happened many times in history as well. How do they take solid form, including the angels? Because angels,
Right.
if they are like photons, made up of photons, light, they are extremely fast because we know the velocity of light. So that is why they are not being able to, we cannot observe them, observe them, sorry. But if they are somehow slowing down and they have this ability, and when we look at the Einstein's, equation, E equals mc squared, then energy can transform into a solid matter. This is possible. Perhaps God has given angels this ability to transform themselves into solid matter as well. That is why people can see them. They can project themselves as solid beings as well. And there are many narrations of hadith where angels like Jibril have been seen not only by the Prophet, but people around him as well. They testified to it. So apart from, these beings which are made up of light, which are made up of some type of radiation, I certainly believe that there are beings on other planets which are made up of organic matter as well, like us.
Right.
Because it is illogical to me that God has created this gigantic universe with billions and billions of systems, galaxies, stars, planets, and then only placed living organic beings on this very tiny planet, very insignificant planet, we should say. And this does not suit, God's creation, because he creates everything with a purpose. So I believe there must be other beings there. And perhaps they have traveled here as well.
Right, sir. Now I want to proceed with the potential technologies that were involved in all these, narrative. Again, in Islamic tradition, we did not, visualize or imagine the angels or genes with potential technology involvement. But we came to a new understanding by looking at the Prophet Muhammad's ascension to heaven with angel Gabriel, with a kind of vehicle called Burak. We understand that even angel Gabriel actually used that kind of technology. And in our previous programs, you also identified some other technologies that were used by Prophet Solomon. And there was another verse in Quran, a surah. You also mentioned about this Ababil, right? Story.
Yes.
So can you please explain to us, tell us, what kind of technologies are mentioned in Quran relating to these extraterrestrial intelligent beings?
Yes. Well, we may start, as you say, we may begin with the ascension of the Prophet, the Miraj.
Right.
And when you look at the Miraj incident, where the noble Prophet was taken from Mecca to Masjid al-Aqsa, what is now in Jerusalem, within a blink of an eye, very quickly. It was a very fast traveling vehicle. and it took him through air, not ground.
Right.
The Prophet explains it very clearly, and we know that those days such technology was not available. People had no idea. That is why when the older scholars, when they try to depict this incident, they think of like a mount, similar to a horse or something with wings, and they try to depict it in that way. But in reality, like you mentioned as well, when you read the incident of Miraj, it is two parts, Isra and Miraj. The first journey, the night journey, Angel Jibril mounts this vehicle with the Prophet. So they travel together. And the way the Prophet explains it is, we were reaching distances as far as the eye can see within a blink of an eye. We were traveling so fast. So I believe this was some type of a divine vehicle. It's a vehicle. It's a craft, flying craft. It is definitely not a horse or anything like that. It cannot be explained. But I can understand the people of that era when you say to them, he traveled through air. The first thing they would think some sort of a winged creature. They cannot think of a spacecraft. They cannot think of a airplane, or something like that. So, yes, the Prophet was taken from that city to the other city. And from there, on that night, with Angel Gabriel, they ascended through the heavens, as he explains, with speeds that we cannot even imagine. And they actually traveled throughout the universe, which is 93 billion light years, in diameter.
Right.
And it's very hard to explain this with even the speed of light, velocity of light. But you might remember in one of our programs, I said that perhaps these angels like Jibril, who are using this some type of crafts to travel through space, they may know all the shortcuts. There may be wormholes out there that connect galaxies, where you can, travel through one galaxy to another very quickly, within seconds, maybe. We don't know. And we have evidence in the Quran as well that these angels can travel very fast. You might remember in Surah Ma'arij 4, it says, they travel a distance of 50,000 years for you, right, for us, according to our years, within a day. So they travel very fast. So these are all indications of some type of technology to me. Otherwise, there's no other way we can explain it. Because if someone was to say, how did the Gabriel angel took Prophet Muhammad and ascended him? He did not just took him into his arms and flew up. So they must have used some sort of a divine technology. That's my interpretation of it, to be honest. Yes.
So I think there are two more topics that the technologies or some sort of crafts were involved. So one is the Surah of Elephants, and the other one is some stories relating to
Solomon.
Prophet Solomon. Can you please tell us about these?
Yes.
Verses?
There are other verses too, of course.
Absolutely.
There are other chapters spoken about Zulkarnain and verses like that. But we don't want to stretch the program too much. That's what I'll try to briefly explain. And the Surah Elephant, the chapter Fil, is very interesting too, because when Abraha, the governor from the region of Yemen, decided to attack Kaaba, Mecca, with his army of elephants, the Quran describes this, and the incident took place about 52 days before the Prophet Muhammad was born. And when they marched on Mecca, when they marched on Kaaba, the Quran says God sent these flying objects to destroy the army of Abraha. Usually, when you look at the Quran and the translations, they always say flying birds. They use the term birds, Tayran Ababil. But in Arabic, Tayran means anything that flies. In
Not
fact,
necessarily birds.
aeroplane is tayyara. It comes
Mhm.
from the same root word, tayyara. And there is a very interesting report by, as I remember, it was Ibn Masud, one of the companions of the Prophet, explaining this incident which the Quran describes, because the Quran says in this chapter, they began to attack the army of Abraha, the army of elephants,
Right.
and they were dropping these how should I put it? These tiny stones, which were cooked. That's the term that the Quran is
Right.
using. And these stones were going through the bodies of the army. It was penetrating like bullets. It's very interesting.
Right.
And after their destruction, the Quran says they turned into a crop field that was flattened, burned. They turned into that. Very interesting descriptions. And when Ibn Masud describes this, he says, what these flying objects were dropping or shooting, we should say, because he says it was red, like a fire color, which were killing all these soldiers. But interestingly, he describes this huge, flying objects, and he says their feet resembled paws, like the paws of the dogs,
Right.
like paws. It's obvious that birds don't have paws, that they were huge and they had these, interesting legs, feet. And I am assuming that he's describing some type of a landing gear. When you look from below, he's describing some type of a landing gear. And interestingly, many people, they interpret this verse as God sent these birds, and they say these birds were big and never seen in that area before, And I did all the math in regards to this, the little stones is not going to destroy an army from 300, 400 meters dropping when you drop it. This is something else that the verse talks about. And very interestingly, again, Ibn Masud says these birds, these flying things, they all had different colors: yellow, red, blue,
Right.
green. It sounds different. It doesn't sound like a bird to me,
Right.
And after the destruction, they flew towards the south, they say. This is all in the narrations. So I believe this is technology, and this technology is used by the angels, and they destroyed the army of Abraha using some form of weapon. It could be laser-like weapon. We don't know. But it definitely wasn't, literally,
Right.
it should not be taken literally, like
Okay.
dropping little stones. Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, what I understand is that the angels might use some technologies, some vehicles to travel in the universe. But what about the genes? What about, we know that Satan and its followers, do you think that they
Yes.
also might use some sort of technologies? If the angels are using some
I,
technologies, because
yes, yes.
I remember from the Quran that when the followers of Satan were trying to steal some sort of news, uh, information, Quran says that we were throwing some sort of fireballs to them. What do you think? Do you think that there is
Destroying them.
Can you please, summarize that,
Yes, yes.
chapter from the Quran? What is going on? What's happening?
Yes, yes. Yes. Well, it is said that, yes, I definitely believe, first I should say this, that jinns have some type of technology. They use vehicles. And if anyone wants to ask for evidence for that, the evidence is in the Quran. Because when you look at the story of Solomon,
Right.
Solomon the prophet,
Right.
in Jewish tradition, he's known as a king, but we believe he was a prophet. And and God gave him unique powers. unique, maybe tools that he used. And when you look at Solomon, you see that jinns were under his command. That's what the Quran says. Jinns were under his command, and he used them as divers. They used to dive into the waters to extract things, and he used them to build things like palace, like temples. Jinns actually worked in building, palaces for Solomon. So these are physical beings that we are talking about, and I believe, yes, if they are able to build, palaces, physical things, structures, then they must use some sort of technology. In fact, also in the verse in the Quran, in Surah Naml, in Surah Saba, it talks about Solomon traveling distances of like 2,000-3,000 kilometers in very quickly through air. He travels to certain distances, and on the same day he comes back to his own kingdom. So these are all evidences of technology in the past, in history, but also these creatures, these beings, these jinns, they do use some type of technology. Like you said in the Quran, it talks about them, going up in space.
Right.
I'm using that term as up from our
and the
perspective.
angels were shooting them with some fireballs.
Yes, because their intention was to take some information from the Arsh, which is just above the observable universe, I would say. And that's where angels usually gather and make decisions. And these jinns were going up there to take or steal, we should say, information.
They were trying to spy on them. It's spying.
Spy on them, spy on the angels. And angels were using some type of weapons to shoot them. That's what the verse is talking about, fireballs. That's what, it's a weapon. So angels were using weapons to shoot them down. So I believe that's what it is. So there is a physical beings out there which are actually fighting amongst themselves as well.
Okay. So one more question. Yeah. So if Prophet Muhammad was taken to the heavens, and if it happened with a kind of vehicle, don't you think that it was necessary for him to get prepared for this travel?
Yes.
I mean, because today, astronauts are being trained for this. So what do you have any do you have any information about this? Anything in our collections and our
yes.
Do we know anything about
it? He was trained. He was trained and he was prepared as well. We should say prepared, because there is evidence that his preparation began even when he was a child, small child. Angels would visit him, then they would perform some form of a surgery on him or operation. Operation. They were preparing his body for the journey. And this had happened, as I remember, 2 or 3 times. Jibril also prepared him just before the ascension as well. There are reports on that. He did something on his heart. He did something on his body. So he was being prepared. There is no doubt about that. And as I mentioned before, after this travel, after this journey, they took Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, to a place which was no place. It's very interesting. So that he was taken out of the space-time continuum. That is why he was able to see the past, present, and future at the same time. Because he talks about people in paradise, for example, where from our perspective, because we are trapped in this slice of space-time, the future hasn't arrived for us. But the Prophet actually saw people in paradise. It is an indication that he was taken out of space-time continuum. So it's a very interesting things, these narrations and the verses in the Quran, when they are analyzed in detail with the scientific knowledge and technology of today, we get a better understanding what the Quran is talking about. in regards to these travels, that the prophets and some unique people did. People like Khidr, for example,
Right.
in the Quran. I believe he was a time traveler, Khidr. I have no doubt about this, because they say historically he lived straight after Abraham, but we see him in the Quran at the time of Moses, and we see him on other occasions too. And I believe there was some type of a time traveler. So
He was
there
a
are
time
very
traveler,
interesting.
and he was changing the incidents. He was changing things that could have happened
Yes,
in the
yes,
future. So it is
yes,
obvious that
yes,
he was a time traveler. Uh,
yes.
I mean, would you like to explain the incidents mentioned in Quran relating to regarding the Hidr's incidents? I mean, would you
Yeah,
like?
well, there is his travels with Moses.
Mhm.
And during these travels, he actually is teaching a certain thing to Moses, a prophet. Imagine that, and 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 he says certain things occur for certain reasons. There is wisdom behind them. On the apparent, you might think this is bad, but behind the scene, if you knew the result, or if you knew the future, there is blessings in it. Why certain things occur in a certain way.
Right.
I won't go into details because it's too long,
Right.
but yes, from this story of Khidr traveling with Moses, we learn that Khidr is a unique person, and God has given him some type of technologies as well to understand the future, to travel through time and so on. Same as Zulkarnain.
Mhm.
Zulkarnain means the holder of two eras or two times.
Dimensions.
So he's some type of a dimensions. He's some type of a traveler too. I believe he's a space traveler, to be honest,
Mhm.
with Zulkarnain. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So we are coming to a very interesting point, because there are some beings mentioned in Quran, uh, might be considered as time travelers, and but also, there is a good side, but there is also an evil side of that story. We
Yes.
are talking about, for example, Satan, and he also has followers and the armies. Do you think that they might be capable of time traveling as well? Because for example, we know that Prophet Muhammad was being protected by the angels. When even he was a kid, I remember some narratives mentioning that there was there were some sorts of clouds following him. This kind of things.
Mhm.
And you also mentioned once some people were reading Quran in the desert, and then they saw
Yes.
a vehicle, right, in the clouds, and
Colorful lights
colorful
appear. Yeah.
lights. So, you know, it is similar to a scene from the Stephen Spielberg's the Encounters. What was the name of
Close encounters. Close
closing
encounters of the third kind.
kind? It looks
Yeah.
like a movie scene, but it's
It actually
1,500
happened.
years ago, the people reported these kind of incidents. So
Yes. Yes.
this is what I want to ask, so the angels might be using some sort of technologies, but there's also the evil side of the story. And there are
Yeah.
some creatures, there are some intelligent beings, fighting the humankind, or fighting the angels, but they might also be using this kind of technologies. Maybe, do you think
Yes.
that they might be capable of time traveling to change? That's why, for example, maybe the Prophet Muhammad was being protected. That's why Jesus
Mhm.
also was being protected, since
Yes.
he
Yes.
was born as an
Yes.
angel. But
Yes. Yes. Maybe they are. Do have the. Maybe they do have the capability of time travel, because these beings are very fast. We have no doubt, because, as I said, they may have been created from some type of electromagnetic,
Mhm.
energy. So they would be quite fast, and they could travel through time, if they know where exactly all the wormholes are, those theoretical, we should say objects in the universe.
Right.
So yes, and they are the perhaps enemy of humans. Some of these groups, they have ill intention towards us. Yes, and they may have, as I said, visited the earth many times before, and they may be, we don't know, visiting the earth now. It is
Right.
possible.
One more question,
Yes.
sir.
Yes.
So, according to Quran, what happens to Jesus? I mean, was Jesus crucified or not? What happened? I mean, I respect my Christian fellows' beliefs. I
Mm,
respect that. I respect the narrative in
mm,
Bible also, but we might
mm.
have some differences. But it is also essential to understand these narratives. So,
Yes, yes.
according to Quran, because the reason I'm asking this because when you examine ethology, you see
Mm.
many interesting paintings relating to Jesus.
Yes,
There are many
yes.
paintings depicting some UFOs nearby Jesus, and
Spacecrafts,
paintings,
yeah.
spacecrafts, and
Yeah.
they
Angelic beings, that's what they are. Angelic
1,000
beings
years
in
ago.
the crafts.
Sure,
Yes,
they
yes.
painted this.
Yeah,
They made this paintings 1,000 years ago.
yeah,
So,
yes, yes.
uh,
Look,
what happens
from a,
according to Quran,
mm,
from your perspective? What happens to Jesus' body?
yes. We do have a little minor difference with the Christian theology and Islamic theology in regards to what happened to Jesus. First of all, I should say this for our, Christians, Christian brothers and sisters, I should say, because we believe in the same God. So
Right.
we are technically brothers and sisters. So from that perspective, I should say that in the Quran, there is an entire chapter under the name of Mary,
Mhm.
Maryam, the mother of Jesus. So for us, Mary is the most holy woman that has ever lived from an Islamic perspective. And she is the only woman whose name is mentioned in the Quran,
Mhm.
the mother of Jesus. So I think Christians should know this in one way. It's because it's important. And in regards to Jesus, the Quran's narrative of Jesus's end, we should say,
Mhm.
he was not crucified. The Quran says God has changed the appearance of a man who actually betrayed him, Judas.
Mhm.
And when the Roman soldiers came to his house, they took Judas instead of him, Jesus.
Mhm.
And it was him that was crucified. And the Quran says Jesus was ascended through the heavens, not
Mhm.
just spiritually, but physically as well.
Mhm.
So, from a Quranic perspective, Jesus did not die at the cross.
Mhm.
And also, when we look at the hadiths of the noble prophet, Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, there is an indication, both in the hadiths and in the Quran too, there will come a time in the future where Jesus will return to earth and complete his mission. And this will happen, interestingly, again, at the time of the Yejuj Mejuj, when they invade the earth.
Right.
And
So,
that's quite interesting too. Yes.
so it's been 2,000 years, but Quran says that uh, they take the distance of uh, 1,000 years long. They take this distance in a day.
Yes.
The verse in Quran,
Angels. Yeah.
and the angels. So,
50,000 in one verse, 1,000 in the other verse. Yeah. But
so
actually,
according to
the
their
travel of angels is 50,000.
50,000.
Yeah.
So, if Jesus was taken to heavens, to the sky, to another
Mm.
place in the universe, according to Quran. So, I mean, this is also possible because if Prophet Muhammad was taken up to the heavens with a
Yes.
kind of,
Yes.
craft, so Jesus could have been also taken to heavens with angels,
Definitely.
with some kind of crafts. And I think that this can explain the sightings the sightings in these paintings that we see in history.
Maybe he was taken with a vehicle as well by angels. We don't know.
That's why these
And
people
he is,
just draw these
yes,
paintings. This might
he
be
is being preserved. And,
right.
and according to the Quranic and Hadith narration, he will return. How his return will be, we don't know. Is it a metaphorical term, meaning that Christianity and Islam will reunite, will unite? Or some scholars explain it that way, but there are strong views among scholars that he will physically return as well, Jesus.
So, I mean, the reason that
Yes.
I mean, even his appearance, didn't change, because in the space, the time does not pass as it passes in the earth.
Yes.
Would you like
Yes,
to
of course.
explain this a little bit?
Yeah. Well, look, for us, as the verse says, for us, maybe, 50,000 years passes, but for Jesus, for example, with that velocity when he was taken, only a day passed. So we
That's
can look at it from that
right.
perspective. And also we know that time dilation also occurs when you're on a planet which is very close to a black hole. So time can flow very slowly on that planet compared to, us on Earth. You might remember in the movie Interstellar, they did this quite well, when they landed on that planet, which was close to black hole. Matthew McConaughey, I think it was Anne Hathaway as well. It was very interesting. They were there just a couple of hours, as I remember. And the person who was waiting for them in the spacecraft, 23 years had passed for him. So this is a reality. This is science. And this is what religion talks about too. There is no contradiction. They support each other.
Right.
Yes.
Sure. I mean, if some non-monotheistic religion believers, okay, there might be some people watching our show and, they might not be following, one of these monotheistic religions. And from their perspective, they would think that, the followers of these monotheistic religions are actually believing in some sort of alien, God, because God, is using some sort of technologies, some sort of intelligence beings. But from their perspective and according to their terminology, they would tend to identify these things as aliens. So, as a Muslim scholar, how would you respond to that?
Look, there are two things about, the polytheistic religions, not monotheistic. One is, when you look at the world's population, first off, maybe I should say this first. If you put the Christian and Muslim populations together, it's more than the half of the world's population. So we can say the world is really a monotheistic, place. We can think about that. Another thing is, what I believe is some of these polytheistic religions, in the past, there must have been some prophets that were sent to them, these tribes, these nations, and the prophets actually taught them about Tawheed, oneness of God, monotheism. But the prophet also explained to them about the different names, divine names, divine attributes of God, which is explained very in detail in Islam. And in time, after hundreds of years pass, these people may have interpreted these names as individual gods. Maybe that's how polytheism came about, the God of food, the God of sun, the God of this. But actually they are all just the names and attributes of God, one God. From our perspective, from an Islamic perspective, God is not made up of matter. God is not somewhere in heaven sitting on a throne and controlling the universe. God is beyond our understanding. In fact, no matter how we imagine God to be, he is not like that. This is what the Islamic interpretation, because God created matter, God created time, space, everything that exists. So you cannot compare anything to God, because before the universe was created, from a technical perspective, scientific perspective, there was nothing but God from our perspective. Nothing but God. So, yes, we need to accept monotheism from that perspective, because there is, we can see that there is determinism in the universe. If we look at classical mechanics, physics, we see that everything works with certain rules, certain laws of physics, biology, chemistry, and everything follows that. It's all systematic, like a clockwork. And whatever law is applicable on Earth, it is also applicable in another galaxy as well. It doesn't change. They are the same laws, which means there is harmony, order in the universe. Where there is harmony and order, there must be one power governing and controlling them all. I think that's why these religions like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, emphasize monotheism so much. Yeah.
And how would you explain, for example, monotheistic religions? The scriptures say that God created the universe in 6 days. So what does it mean, 6 days? So how would you interpret that?
Well, in the Quran, we know that the term yawm or ayyamin, days, does not mean a day as we understand, because the Earth days did not exist when the universe was being created anyway. So you cannot interpret it with that anyway. It would be illogical. But if you look at the etymology of that word, you will see it means things like stages, eras, periods, equal periods. So the 6th day, the term 6 days, it should be interpreted as 6 stages. And I wrote one small article about this, and I found it very interesting because I just come across it by accidentally. I was doing this mathematical equation, and since they say that the universe has been around for 13.8 billion years, when you divide this creation into 6 equal periods, it turns out that each period, each day, each period is 2.3 billion years, and you can use this as an evidence when you look at the life of the Earth, our planet, which is about 4.6 billion years. And the Quran says we created the Earth in 2 days, 2 periods. And then it turns out to be 2.3 billion, 2.3 billion. It's 4.6 billion. So I believe that term is stages, not days as we understand Earth days, 24 hours. Yes.
Okay. Dr. Ergi, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Yes.